being here, you guys. I know this isn't, easy to do throughout the campaign season, but I think our readers really get a lot of value out of it. So really appreciate you guys coming and spending some time with us. So introductions. Anybody want to volunteer to go first?
Feel free.
Oh, thank you so much. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patty Adair, and I am running for Deschutes County Commissioner, position number 3. I grew up in Heppner, Oregon, and put myself basically through the University of Oregon with a degree in history, and went on and became a CPA through a program at Central Washington. I've worked in accounting over my life. I'm delighted to be back in my home state. I'm a 4th generation Oregonian. The amazing thing that I just found out this week is that my uncle, my papa, my grandfather, was the county commissioner in Umatilla County. He served several terms there. I thought he was the extension agent. I mean, he was kind of before my time. But it's amazing because I've been always asked, why am I doing this? And it's in my genes. So thank you, Pop, for being that leader. He also did the PIE in Portland, that huge livestock show. That was his really big job. And I found out a lot of family history just by running and talking to different members of my very enormous family. So here I am, I'm running for Deschutes County Commissioner. I feel that with my accounting background, I'm uniquely qualified to serve as a county commissioner. I spent 4 days at the budget hearings, and I saw the amount of increase that we've had over the last 12 years, where the number of employees has gone up 22%, but the actual salary and benefits has gone up over 80%. So I really believe that I can bring some fiscal restraint to our county. I know we are living in an area that's highly vulnerable to smoke, fires, and hopefully the next couple of years we'll be able to do greater clearance of our forests in order to protect the people that live in our county. And it looks like we're going to have another serious issue with water, and I know the commissioners are not in charge of the water, but we really need to make sure that our water is protected. I know that Wickiup now is down to the lowest level it's been. I mean, it's the reservoir there. So we have a lot of serious issues in our county. I've also been running on the fact that I was hoping the county would strengthen the marijuana regulations. They've actually made a proposal on that. They haven't voted yet, but they did spend hundreds of hours listening to the community, the rural residents of Deschutes County, and they have made several suggestions which the current commissioners will be voting on. I would greatly appreciate your support, and I'm happy to be here today in beautiful Bend. I believe it's like the start of fall. Thank you.
So I assume we'll have a chance to actually talk about some of those issues as we go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm James Cook. I'm running for position 3 in the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners, and I bring to the table 5 years of experience working with the City of Redmond. Initially with Parks and the Parks Committee, but I was later appointed to the Planning Commission. I'm their chair of the Planning Commission. I've worked on our budget committee. I've actually helped craft a municipal budget, so I realize it's not just adding up columns and rows in a spreadsheet. It's actually making hard decisions that can involve, one of those cells could be a police officer. One of those cells can be planning for the future. One of those cells could be repairing roads. So it's not a matter of just building that spreadsheet. You have to know what that spreadsheet means, and you have to be willing to make hard decisions about the priorities for the future of Deschutes County and how those priorities are going to be met. I came to Deschutes County 8 years ago. I know Patty's 4 generations in Oregon, but realistically, she left town for 39 years, and she's only been in Deschutes County for 4, so I've been here almost twice as long. During that time, I don't think it really matters if you've been here 4 years, 8 years. I think people who move to Deschutes County come to love Deschutes County. I moved here to be close to my first grandchild who was on the way, lives in Bend. I now have 2. And as a county commissioner, the way I like to think of the job is ensuring in 20 years down the road, when it's time for them to begin their adult lives and start their families, I'd like them to be able to want to do it here, that Deschutes County would remain livable, but also that it would be affordable for them to do it here. We're already losing too many young people who have to leave town to find a well-paying job or to find affordable housing. And I think if we're losing our young people, it doesn't really matter the wonderful people we're bringing in. Losing a generation of young people is setting the county up for failure. So I want to see us address those issues of livability and affordability.
Thank you. So we'll dive into a few topics at the moment. Chris, you want to start us off?
Sure. This is for all these are for both of you, but how do you guys plan to represent all of the people in Deschutes County? I mean, there's a very varied group of people around here, and I'd really like to hear, instead of what's been happening lately is, everyone seems to be pigeonholing themselves. I want to hear how you want to represent everyone to the best that you can.
I believe what I've been doing, I just spent the morning in La Pine. I was in La Pine Wednesday. I talked to people all over the county. A week ago, I was in Redmond talking to people in Lowe's when I was shopping, and no one in Redmond at the Lowe's lived in Deschutes County. That's the problem, and that's why I am running. I want to bring those people back. I want to make Deschutes County affordable again. When you look at the property tax fund, that's gone up over 60% in 12 years. Now they've cut it back a teeny portion, but because of the increase in the assessed value, it's really taking a lot of money from people that are retired. They can no longer afford to live here, and I feel that we really need to make it affordable. We need to not only make it affordable from a property tax point of view, we need to really address our housing costs, what the county is charging to build things, and we need to make it the most efficient building department possible. When you need a permit, you shouldn't have to wait for 4 or 5 months for a permit that can actually be given within a month, within a week. I mean, things have just really backed up for a lot of people. I really believe that we need to streamline. I think that'll help a lot of people. Then the other issue, as far as affordability goes, I talked to the man at the gas station. He's working. I think that's fabulous. He goes, Patty, I don't have a home, but he's working. I think we need to, if we can possibly, I know that La Pine actually has a way to bring in tiny homes there. I was just talking with the mayor, and Dennis Scott is endorsing me. And those tiny homes could make a difference for the homeless people. I've talked to people that work in Sisters that are living in fifth wheels. Now the state apparently has promised that they're going to vote in early 2019 for accessory dwelling units, that it will be allowed in the rural community. And I am a supporter of those units. It's not legal now, unless I believe it's grandfathered in, to rent a house or apartment on your property in rural Deschutes County. And I think that could be such a win-win. We could actually give housing to people that definitely need it. They need to get out of that fifth-wheeler. And so I feel as a someone who understands number, but also is compassionate to the need for the residents. I actually went to one of the home manufacturers, which will remain nameless, and I told them I was running, and they said, oh, well, we tell everyone to move to Jefferson and Crook County. And to me, that's why I'm running. I want the people that work here, I want our families that serve us to be able to come back to Deschutes County and be here. I mean, it is such a special, beautiful place, and I want to maintain that. Actually, I want to maintain it for more people than what it's currently serving. The housing prices are up, totally unaffordable for most people. The average wage in our county is $54,000, and with the home prices at $450,000, who can afford that?
So I'm not sure that, I think Chris dove into a question that's actually pretty loaded.
Right,
Which is, there's definitely some polarizing political views in the county. So I'm actually curious about that specific issue. Affordable housing is, of course, one of those touch points that can reach across the political spectrum. But, I think they're more to the heart of the question is, How do you represent people from varying political views in the county?
How do I?
How will you?
Oh, I believe I will. I've talked to lots of Democrats, and after they talk to me, they say, "Oh my gosh, actually give me your card."
Mm-hmm.
So I really love people. I have done extensive charity work in my life. I always believe that you need to give back and you need to reach across the aisle. I've actually talked in a couple of Judy's classes, and I find it amazing what she does, her work, and what she's teaching, and how she's reaching the young people and the people that realize that they want to go back and get a better education. So I believe that I do reach across. I talk to a lot of people. That's what I do. I mean, it's like, it's my day.
Okay.
Yeah, I would appreciate it, and I don't mean to be rude, but if we could try to have the candidates focus on the question, because it's hard to respond to about a half dozen issues that Patty just.
Yeah, I thought it was a really wide question,
Yeah,
though. I mean,
yeah.
But what?
Noted, yes. And we do follow, we do notice when the
Okay.
question isn't adhered to as asked.
So, it's a good question, because I think Patty, as nice a person as she is, and as many people as she talks to, has proven to be a very divisive figure in Deschutes County. She moved here 4 years ago, became chair of the Republican Party, and has used that office to primary a very popular county commissioner, Tammy Bainey, who served very well for 12 years. She worked against Jack Zika in his primary.
Excuse me, I clarified that. I didn't
Well,
work against Jackson.
Well,
I know,
Yeah,
but he said this
I'm sorry,
several
I
times.
let you go along if you'll let me finish. And we have a case, there was an article in the bulletin just the other day that the Republican, traditional Republican groups are not coming to endorse Patty. They've either sat out or in some cases contributed to my campaign. I have Tammy Bainey's endorsement. I have good relationships with a number of Republicans. I talk to Republicans just like she talks to Democrats. There was an interesting letter yesterday from, I believe, the vice chair of the Republican Party in Deschutes County that pointed out, first of all, try and point out that Patty was not being divisive, but called the Republicans who have not supported her the establishment, as if they were the bad guys. So I think, again, it's just pointing out the divisiveness. But it made an interesting point that my mayor, George Endicott, has endorsed Patty. But I think, in fact, that makes the point of how I can work across party lines. Because I've worked with George for 5 years in the city of Redmond. George appointed me to the Parks Committee. He saw my work on the Parks Committee. He appointed me to the Planning Commission. I'm now chair of the Planning Commission. He appointed me to this year's Budget Committee. When George wants something done in Redmond, he's turned to me. And to me, that's all the endorsement I need from George. The fact that George is a Republican who is struggling in a race with another Republican to be a re-elected mayor, he felt the political need to reach out to Patty to get on board with her faction of the Republican Party. That's politics. I'm aware of it, but I'm happy with the positions George has put me in.
Mm-hmm. So you think you've adequately answered the question of, okay, you speak to
I think
Republicans? What else
I've
is
worked
there?
with George, who is endorsing my opponent. I have a good working relationship with George. I'm on the Planning Commission in Redmond with Jack Zika, obviously a Republican, and I'm a Democrat. In most cases in local government until this election, I didn't really know the political position of a number of people. And I think that's because at the local level, the partisan bickering that happens at our state and national level really doesn't apply. If you've got a pothole in front of your house, that pothole's not red, it's not blue, it's a pothole and you want it fixed.
Mm-hmm.
I think county government should be focused on solving the problems of Deschutes County, meeting the challenges of Deschutes County, taking advantage of the opportunities we have. And I don't think that's a partisan issue.
Okay. Patty, I know you wanted to say something in response to the Zika.
Oh, yes. There was an error made, and I immediately corrected it regarding Jack Zika. And it was unfortunate, but I did immediately correct it. So it wasn't that I was supporting one person over another, because I wasn't. for the primary. And it ended up being a 2-vote primary. So that was history, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That
was
shows
awesome.
you that your vote counts and everyone needs to be informed and to vote.
And it
So,
shows the
definitely.
division that has developed within the Republican Party in Deschutes County, that it's that evenly divided between a far right wing and a more moderate wing. And that.
Well, it was just,
that-
actually, it's just a small section, House District.
It's a-
It's a small
I
section.
live in Redmond, I
Right, I know.
consider it a small section, it's not a
Well-
minor area, it's an entire House district.
Well,
And are you saying?
it's not the whole
not-
county, it's not the whole county, it's just this district up there.
It's not important because it's not the whole county, is
No,
that what
I'm-
you're telling me?
No, I
Well, let's
wouldn't.
get it back, let's move on.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you wanna get one in
I'm
there?
gonna defend Redmond.
Sure.
I love Redmond.
Just as a matter of experience, I know that every vote counts.
Yes. Oh, that's right,
Yes,
you
you
know
Because
that.
I lost a race by only 500 votes, so, you know.
Yes.
Not quite as close as. the
Not quite
race,
as close as two,
yeah.
but, you know, out of 30+ thousand, yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, issues of budget came up, so I wanna focus in on, and, one of the things, I know that it's, talking generally about budgets and it often comes up, it's, well, we need to be responsible about the budget and cut the budget and do this and do that. But that's always, those are good, sort of bullet points, but the reality is the county budget services a lot of different, well, it provides a lot of different services within this
Correct.
community. And so I guess, and also getting back to one of the things that you mentioned, Patty, about the property taxes, my going back and looking at some of the property tax aspects, actually Deschutes County, I believe in the last 2 years in their budgeting process, has not exercised the 3%
No, it's,
increase in the property tax.
They dropped the.
they dropped it
assessment
3 cents is what they dropped it
But-
last year, and then 6 cents this year.
Although
Again,
there are other
right.
county taxes that
Right,
have
there are other
actually
county
gone
taxes,
up.
but, so we have all of the we have the budgeting, we have the revenue aspects of it, we also have the spending aspects. So I guess, again, talking generally about budget cuts is an easy thing to do, and easy thing to throw out there, that kind of thing. But what I'd like it more specifically is, with all this in mind, I would like to know from each of you if there are places that you see need that to increase services, to expand services in certain areas, and if you believe that there are cuts that need to be made to the budget. Specifically, what cuts are you talking about? Because, the county, local government, as I teach my students, they're responsible for a lot of the day-to-day services to our citizens. And so it's easy to talk budget cuts. It's a lot harder to say, I guess just in general, if what is your view of the budget? What do you think, if there are increases needs to be made, if you think we're in the right place where we're at with the budget and why? And if you think there are budget cuts, what specifically are you looking at? Not in general, but if you're looking at specifics. So
Well,
I get that big budget picture here.
Yeah, James, why don't you go
yeah,
first?
I have a couple of concerns that the reductions in our property tax rate have come at the expense of some of our reserve funds, including the capital reserve. I was over at the courthouse meeting with the judges the other day, and we are likely to get a judge, a new circuit judge. Hopefully it will happen this year, but certainly within the next year or two. When that happens, we have to expand the courthouse to provide another courtroom. There are plans with that, and in one of the forums, Commissioner DeBone said, at that point, we're going to need to go out for a bond issue. There are other expenses that we know are on the horizon. Our economy is good today. It's always nice to cut taxes when you can, but by not contributing to those reserve funds now, while we actually have that income here, while we have the good economy going, we're setting ourselves up to a point where if the economy drops at the same time we need that bond issue, we might not get it. We might not be able to house that new judge. We might not be able to build some other piece, thing for the county that's going to be important to us. I think we could, by building our capital reserve now, we could plan for those contingencies and at the very least reduce the amount of burden we have to place on the taxpayers in the future to fund those. The development department is an easy place to criticize. It does take a while to get permits. This is not unique to Deschutes County, and things seem to cost, to the person who deals with it once or twice, a lot of money. But the development department is fee-based, which means if you want to improve service, you're probably going to have to add people, which is actually going to drive the budget up, which is going to increase your fees. If you want to get rid of staff, it's going to take longer to get your permits. So, the thing is, it's as you said, it's easy to talk about these things and say, cut, cut, cut. But there are consequences when we do that. And if we're going to continue to provide good services, if we're going to do things like add the sobriety center, we're going to have to pay for those things. And so that's why we look at the budget carefully. And if we make a decision to lower the rates, I think we have to be upfront and honest about what we're not doing with that money and what the future cost of that is.
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the main costs that the county now is looking at is the fact that the salaries for employees with their benefits are averaging over $100,000. Now, the employees were given significant raises last December, and most people that work in the county are given a 5% raise a year. They were given an additional 3.7% raise at the end of 2017, and the decision made at that time was done by department heads. So what it did is it put the people that work for our county government are all paid almost double what the people that actually work here. The private industry, that average family salary is only $54,000. So I think we have to be really careful, because what we've done now is the actual head of the department, if they're in an elected position, their salary is barely higher than their deputy chief of staff. So then those people are going to need a bump up because the person underneath them is now almost up to them. So I was at the hearings for 4 days, and I do realize that that's something that's going to be hitting us in the future. So I just want everyone to be aware of that. One thing I did learn when I took county college last year is that we in Deschutes County stripe our roads every year. We have like 900 and some miles of county roads. Well, our adjoining counties, Crook and Jefferson, stripe every other year. It might be a minor cost, I don't know, but I did talk to a lot of people that told me what we really need to do and our county roads need to do is make sure our winter roads are taken care of. We have an incredible attendance problem at our schools with absenteeism up to 27%. And so if we as county commissioners can make sure that our road department is actually going out there taking care of the winter roads. I know 2 years ago it was a bit of a nightmare, but we still need to take care of those roads. We need them to be accessible for people that are getting to work, that are driving from La Pine. We have most of our workforce in the county in Bend. 2/3 of the workforce is here in Bend, 20% is in Redmond. We've got a lot of things, but we have to have our roads working.
So are you, just so I'm clear,
Yeah, I was gonna ask
is the absentee rate that you're citing, is that during the winter when you're saying that the roads are not
You know what?
in
They
good
didn't
shape?
actually say it was a winter absenteeism rate. I believe it is. I was told by the mayor of La Pine, Dennis Scott, that Patty, we've got to do a better job on keeping those roads clean so people can get to work and they can get to school.
So are you advocating spending more money
No,
on
I'm
the
saying
road
that
department?
what I said was the striping is really, we do striping in Deschutes County every year. perhaps that money should be saved. We should do it every other year like the other counties. But actually, we need to make sure that.
Striping is actually a safety issue as well.
It is, but maybe we don't need
Let
it.
her, and you can have a chance to respond and when
I
she's
appreciate
finished.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, if they really need it, they could, of course, they would be striped if it's a heavily used county road. But if not, we don't need to have it striped every year if it's unnecessary, if we're just spending money. You know, you talk to people that one road is torn up for 2 weeks, and then a month later they come back and take everything out. I mean, we need to have everything planned together so that we are not wasting county funds. Have you ever driven in town? The FedEx guys will tell you this. They'll go like, oh my gosh, they were just tearing up this, they repainted it all, and a month later, they're ripping it all out again. So we just need to make sure that government is talking to each other and we know what's in the plan.
So, there's so much to respond to here. First of all, you didn't say how you were gonna pay for this,
What?
for cleaning the roads in winter. Are you saying
No,
that
I'm
one
saying that we
striping,
do-
if we
we-
don't stripe, if we only stripe every other year, that will allow us to
I'm just saying
clean the
that's,
road to your satisfaction?
no, I'm just
Or are you
saying
willing to
within the
pay
road
more?
department, we
But
need to
are you-
maybe reassess what the priorities are. And I'm
So-
saying
so-
that the winter, that's what I'm hearing from people. People are telling
But
me,
you're not talking about the priority. What are you giving up? Is striping gonna pay for what you're proposing?
you know what, I have to
Or-
look at the numbers, James. It's really important to look
But
at the numbers. I'm just
it-
saying that that's a possibility.
And you
I
are, hold
would
it,
be
you were
curious to know
supposed
what the
yeah,
numbers are
you-
as
you
well.
are.
Let's look and see if that's
Yeah.
apples to apples
and-
and then we can
I know.
have
How
it.
come how come she's allowed to respond to me that way while I'm talking? When
I'm
I
gonna
wasn't
try
supposed
to try to keep
Okay.
it, let's lay the ground rules for
But
when we,
we-
just one moment.
Okay, so-
When we ask a question, I appreciate it if each of you
Would be-
does not try to interject. You'll have a chance at the end, okay? So
So-
let's do our best for that.
This is a familiar pattern with Patty. She has a lot of ideas for things the county should do, but she doesn't tell you how she's gonna pay for them. I sat in a forum 6 months ago where Patty said, I'm a CPA. I think that's an incredible, she believes that's an incredible skill to bring to the county. And she can't wait to look at the budget. Okay, it's 6 years later. She said she attended 4 budget meetings. The budget is a public document. You know, what I would like to know is after 6 months, what you've learned, and can you give us some specifics? Tell us where we can cut, tell us where we get the money to pay for the other ideas you have. And then, before we go on, it's a separate issue, but you said, have you driven in the cities? The city roads are not the county's responsibility.
I know they're not.
Well, but when you talk about these issues, you conflate city problems with county problems. You've done it in the past with, you know, the role that the county should play in graduation rates. I think what we're finding is there's confusion on your part about what the county actually does and is responsible for, and there is a desire to propose nice things and say at the same time you're going to cut the budget. Those don't necessarily work together, and I think you should be straightforward and specific about these proposals if you have them.
Anything you'd like to say in response?
Well, we could talk about the fleet of the county. Apparently, Deschutes County at one time did have Priuses in their fleet. Now, they don't have them anymore, but when I went to the budget hearings, some of the departments would come in and say they needed 4 new cars. Well, you probably know in your life that if you buy a new car and you keep it for 10 years of your life, you do that repetitively, you can actually retire 5 years early. So when a department comes in, and I know, you save that much money because it's the depreciation value of the car. But when a department comes in to the county and they have their budget, they're presenting, and they say they need 4 new cars, I would just like to make sure, I know there's a program that you can run it all through, but what is the age of the car? Does it really need to be? Has it been driven hard? I know the sheriff's department is they have their own special needs because they're driving their vehicles, 100 miles an hour. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about other departments in the county. Do they really need 4 new cars? Could they get by with 2? You get that new car and then, the county has another asset which it must maintain. So I'm just saying, we just need to carefully look at things when we are analyzing budgets. And that's one of the things that I feel. I am a compassionate person. I do care that Oregon is in the bottom of education. And I do believe that the county commissioners, working with the road department, could actually make sure that our roads, our county roads, are clear, so those people in the rural communities can get their kids to school.
Okay, so I just want to respond to another question, or another element that you mentioned, the salaries and the benefits, and you said that's $100,000 combined.
Yes.
That includes benefits and
And
salaries,
salary,
which
right.
is like, so typically I know that benefits are a pretty large piece, so when you say 100,000, that's
person.
not actually a salary that you're quoting there, so you've compared that to then the
Average family.
average family.
Yes.
But those aren't apples to
It's-
apples because
see-
you're including benefits in the
I know, but
one.
see, those people have to pay for their health insurance on top of it.
No, I mean, I don't,
You don't?
I make a salary and then my benefits are paid partly by my employer, and I don't combine those two when I
Okay.
say how much I make.
No, you don't. But it is on the county budget. It is listed that way,
Right.
that it's over
But I don't think
100,000.
it's a fair comparison to
Really?
say, okay, there's an average salary in the community and it's 55,000 and these people are making 100 and that's not equal, because you're combining benefits over here. I
Okay.
just want to point that out.
Okay, thank you.
Another question I have in regards to that is, just a second. So you started out talking about affordable housing,
Right.
and that people, and James, you also mentioned this, people not being able to afford to live here.
Deschutes County.
So I'm curious about how those two things jive when, when it's becoming more expensive to live here, housing costs and housing values are going up. What do you say to a county employee when you say, I'm sorry, you don't deserve this raise that will give you the ability to live in our county? Anything that you would say to that person face to face when you're not giving them that raise?
I think most of the county employees are, it's hard to find because of the availability is an issue right now. We do need more housing built in Deschutes County that is affordable.
Mhm.
But those people are actually making a lot more money than, let's say, the beginning salary of a lot of people that have lived here their whole life.
Mhm.
They're struggling. People that are retired here, their property taxes, they've been here for 20 years, and they are telling me that they're going to have to sell their house and rent an apartment because they can no longer afford it. So,
Is anyone familiar with the cost of living increase percentage-wise year over year? In
it
Deschutes County?
depends, it varies.
Right.
They get
3% doesn't seem like it would be, it's over 3%.
Right, well, they get a cost of living raise on top of their 5% raise when they go up each level.
Mhm.
So they get a 5 and a 3.
Step increase.
Right, their step increases goes up to a level, and then they may hit another level, and then it
But
will
step
continue.
increases aren't an annual thing, and they're
Oh.
only something that comes into play when they
Well,
are elevated in their position.
a lot of county employees still do get that 5%. Depending, there's,
But
I
not
believe,
every year.
most years, and they do get a cost of living every year.
So would you tell a county employee that they shouldn't be, they shouldn't get more money this year because the cost of living has gone up? Because,
No, they do get a cost of living.
okay,
I do believe that's a guarantee.
okay. James, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah. First of all, the fact that our median income for a family of 4 is around $56,000, maybe up to around $60,000 now. That is an issue that we should be concerned about and working on. But that doesn't mean, we're not going to change that by paying people at the county less. Patty has talked in the past, been upset that we compare our salaries to the salaries of people on the other side of the Cascades for our municipal workers. But that's realistically the people we're competing against. It's expensive to live in Deschutes County. If you want to bring professionals, engineers, lawyers, we've got nurses, we have police officers. If you want to bring them into the county, you have to pay them enough to live a decent life in Deschutes County. You have to compete with not just the people on the other side of the Cascades, but with the city of Bend, the city of Redmond, who are also pay their staff fairly well and have a decent set of benefits.
Mm-hmm.
We have been trying to get an assistant director for the 911 system with some more technical background for almost a year now, I believe. And they had a candidate. To get him here, they were trying to find a job for his wife and work out a number of issues, and they eventually lost him as a candidate. So starting over again, the salaries we're paying are the salaries that we need to pay to be competitive. Again, and a number of those salaries are union contracts that are negotiated with the county. So, it's not like you can go in and cut that salary tomorrow, and it's not like if you cut that salary, you could expect to retain these people. And retaining our employees saves cost, because it's very difficult and time-consuming and costly to onboard new employees, especially in the technical positions, in the development department, engineers with the roads, and a number of other positions. So we do pay our staff well. They have good benefits, but it's necessary to keep them and to attract them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, you mentioned 911, so why don't we just go ahead and go there. What was our question? What did the...
It's basically how would you guys solve the ongoing
Fix the issue.
problem, basically? We could call it a lot of different words, but
Challenge.
yeah.
The challenge of the 911.
Yes.
Yes. Apparently, I was at the workshop last week with James, and apparently what was suggested and should be immediately implemented, and hopefully it has been by today, is they're going to do a statistical test in 400 different locations in the county to see what is it we really have. That's the critical factor. We need to know what is the rating. The initial rating that was given wasn't done scientifically by the right people. So they're going to have the same person go around, test the system everywhere. And then I do believe at that point in time, when we have those results, and we know either because the trust has been lost between the county, Harris, we need to know, okay, where are we? And then the decision needs to be made. Is it just going to take a couple towers? They're $500,000 a tower that were taken out of the plan in 16. Are we going to put in the tower up by Smith Rock, the one on the west side of our Butte, or is it really bad? But I believe that really we need the testing. It can be done right now. Let's find out what the results are, and then we can make an intelligent decision from where to go. So they did bring in the past consultant. He was doing the presentation. That seemed to be the consensus of the room. Okay, do the testing now, please. Other people have said, it's not as bad as it seems. It should be a 97% effective rate, but I do believe that we cannot have our 911 system not working. So it's, we have a lot of hills here. Even, what was it, over in a 4-county area in Portland, they were going to spend like an amazing amount of money, and they were still not going to have the coverage. So it's not going to be 100%, but 97% should be, it should serve us, and we should be in a positive place. So I want to see the testing, how that comes out. And hopefully they're going to have another meeting within the next 3 weeks, so we can actually find the results from the testing, authentic testing by one person.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges actually with the 911 system. One of the challenges we faced is how we ever got in this position in the first place. There was, originally when this was being sold, and I actually sat in a meeting in Redmond where the 911 district and the new service was discussed, the general impression that was left that was basically we were getting a Cadillac system to replace an old failing system. Obviously, that didn't happen. At one point the commission was touting the cost savings we had, but now that we've spent hundreds of hours, a lot of our police chiefs and fire chiefs' time in meetings and various things that, and we realize there's going to be additional expenses, but we're not talking about that so much. But what I think we need to know is, there were 2 towers in the original proposed plan, although the plan that we actually bought did not include those. We need to find out, what happened at that stage. I think when we look at it, we'll find that there is plenty of blame to go around at every stage. I think because we had new leadership and leadership that didn't particularly work out in the 911 department at that time, the fact that we had some transitions going so that the advisory committee, which is composed of the chiefs, wasn't really quite sure of what their role is. Our vendor wasn't really clear what they were selling. Our consultant wasn't really good about clarifying that. And I think everyone just kind of assumed the next person had crossed the T's and dotted the I's, and no one actually did that. Ultimately, that decision gets approved by the Planning Commission, which is the governing body of 911. My mother was born in Independence, Missouri, where Harry Truman lived, and Harry said, the buck stops here. And I think this is a case where the buck needs to stop with the Planning Commission, the County Commission, and things need to get solved, whether that's adding 2 more towers, whether it's adding a multiplex system in Redmond, whether there are specific pockets that are problematic, and whether it's important to cover those pockets, because that 97% coverage can mean 100% coverage here and very little coverage over here. Mm-hmm. So we need to identify not just the random testing, but also the pockets that are giving our people trouble. Mm-hmm. And we need to get that solved, and then we need to have an independent audit that tells us what went wrong during this process, and then the management of the 911 system needs to be, we need to make sure we have in place the people and the procedures to prevent something like this from happening again. Mm-hmm. And that's, the 911 system is where it's happened. I think it's partly due to the history of the system that we were set up possibly for a failure like this, but we need to take the lessons we learned here and make sure the next time we have a $5, $10, $12 million contract that we don't end up with the same situation. We need to make sure we have our systems in place to make sure these contracts are well documented.
You don't pay it all, and you don't pay it all off until you really know that it's working. It was paid off, unfortunately, before it was really tested properly.
Okay. Any follow-ups to that, guys?
I do, actually. If it's going to cost more money, and we're trying to constrain our budget, how does that work? I mean, do you feel we need to go back and ask for the people that put in this bad system to help out, or is it something where the people that live here are going to have to pay more money again?
That's a good question. It appears possibly, and again, we're asking questions now that should have been asked.
Absolutely, I understand
before before this system was contracted for, much less before it was installed. So there may be some money we can recover if we can show that they were negligent, then certainly we should try to recover that. The 911 taxing district has its own tax base. The thing's going to be, if we need to add 2 towers at $500,000 each, or something else, then we're going to have to see if the 911 system has the money to do that, and if public safety has to be a priority. And we're going to have to figure out how to fund that. So which means, yes, we're going to have to come up with money to pay for that. Where exactly all that, every cent is going to come from is going to have to be worked out. Mm-hmm. But we can't put off the repairs. We need to get the fire chiefs who are actually somewhat excited about the possibilities of the system, but they stated clearly, we just don't trust the information we're getting. So if we want to get on this, let's do it. But yeah, we're going to have to find the money to pay for it.
Well, the money was there originally, and I don't think it has been determined why those towers were taken out. So I do believe that the money is within the county, and we just need those, that test to really make a determination. And do we go back to Harris and ask them to help cough up if the system itself is not functioning? It's almost like what I was hearing. When you have, it used to be your cell phone would go kind of out and you'd have a warning. Well, with this system, you're fine and then it's gone. So that, it's like, I know when when I'm at certain places on my property that my phone isn't going to work. So we know that, you know your dead zones, and the police, everyone's going to have to know like their dead zones, but we really, we want it to be at that 97%. I mean, there's no other way about it. But we've got to have a functioning 911 system. We need to know Santa Rosa system did not work in the fire last fall. They did not get a 911 call. And 911 that's one of our chief responsibilities, is making sure the operation is 100%, 99%.
Whether it costs more money or not.
No, the money was already there for those towers, and they were taken out.
Let's say
No, I mean,
hypothetically it's going to cost more money. I mean, so
If you look
would
at
you
the
say
work-
that you would support that funding?
If you look at the working capital budgets of the county over the last 12 years, they have increased in massive quantities. And I believe it was like in 2007, there might have been like $4,000 or $5,000 million in the working capital balance. Last year, that balance increased over our $15 million in 1 year. It's up to like 113 million or something.
So you'd be okay with using some of
Yeah,
that
because
capital funds?
yes,
Okay.
there's working capital there.
Okay.
So you're willing to take money out of the general fund of the county
No,
to
this is
finance
the beginning balance. It's
but-
the increase.
But you understand what the beginning balance is, don't you?
Do I understand?
Yes.
Of course I understand.
Could you explain it to us?
Yes, you take your funds that you used the prior year, and it's your leftover funds. Those funds start your next year. When those funds have dramatically increased, even with our recession, they still dramatically increased the past 12 years. So, when you look at that number, you think,
That's not exactly accurate. The beginning balance for the county, the fiscal year starts in July. The tax revenue starts coming in after November when the taxes go out. So the beginning balance for the county provides the money to start the fiscal year and get through that part of the year until November, December, when actual tax revenue is coming in for the year. So if you don't have that money, or if it's less, that means you can't pay your bills to get to the beginning of the tax revenue. So that's what the purpose of the beginning balance is. So if you're taking money out of your beginning balance, you're not running the county for some period of time until the new tax revenue comes in.
Chris, why don't you just do me a favor, just check and make sure that's still running. Just I'm nervous when I can't see the red light.
you can't see the red light.
Okay, great.
Where is that?
Okay, well, let's move on. We have other issues at hand. I know I was at the county debate and we talked extensively about marijuana, and it's obviously a hot button issue in Deschutes County. So I'd like you to share your views on whether you think the current regulations, minus what may be proposed, are enough for our producers and of course the neighbors who have some concerns. So I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think our current regulations are the strictest in the state for marijuana growth. I think we should keep those. We should enforce them. I think we're making a mistake by trying to add additional restrictions on. Our regulations have not yet been challenged to the Land Use Board of Appeals. They haven't gone to the courts. We don't know how they'll do if they are tested, but no one has chosen to because it's easier to jump through the hoops that we require than it is to have a expensive appeal process and potential delay every year or two even as the process works out. If we go down the path of adding the restrictions the commissioners are now proposing, and Tony DeBone has admitted in a forum that a lot of them are not going to happen. They've thrown everything out there that's come up over the years. But if we went forward with these, we're likely to end up like Josephine County did. Josephine County, had very strict regulations. They got an appeal, they got thrown out, they went to court, to federal court to challenge the state's right to regulate them, and they lost. If we go down this path, we face a real likelihood that we're going to be challenged in either the legislature to tighten up the regulations, at LUBA, or in the courts. And if that happens and we lose, we could lose all of our regulations or a significant part of our regulations that we currently have in place. And I just don't think that's a wise decision. The OLCC has stepped up their enforcement. OHA has turned over tracking of larger medical grows like 3 or more patients to also OLCC's seed to sale tracking. The industry is beginning to shake out because we have an oversupply and there's not the money that a lot of people thought they were going to get. I think we should keep our current regulations and give the state and the market another year or 2 to shake out and then revisit if necessary.
Thank you.
Well, the county commissioners listened to hours and hours of testimony from residents, from rural residents. And if you remember, you go back to history of what's happened in Deschutes County, it only passed by 51% bust. So we were in that little variable zone. And unfortunately, the county decided that we could have it out in our county, but in greenhouses. So when you have greenhouses and you have operations with fans and things, I listened to a lot of neighbors that said, there's all these fans, there's all this noise. I just believe that the county commissioners, by what they have added, which they will be voting on, perhaps in a month or 2, that it's just cleaning up what their original regulations were, just giving them a little more specificity. They may be called draconian on one side, but if it's your neighbor and you're surrounded by a marijuana operation that has their lights on all the time, that's running a lot of units, that is, your family, you're constantly in that noise and you can't open your door anymore, you might want to hope that things get a little more, just whatever they vote on will be fine. But I'm so happy that they did listen to people. I think that's very important. And they will be making a decision, and I think it'll be for the best of our county. So it's, we don't know what they'll want to do with the odor, with the noise, but they did listen. And then of course we have to recognize that it was public input for 3 or 4 months, I believe. So they've heard from a lot of people on what people are dealing with. People that live in the country, the rural residents that didn't actually vote for it in their areas, have been dealing with, and their life has been impacted. A lot of their wells have gone dry, and they would like to see things just a little more carefully regulated. And actually, the fact that the Sheriff's Department is going to have an employee that's an officer that's going to be out there, and the city of Bend has one. We didn't have any enforcement before, and so it's really good. At least now we have enforcement. Things will be, I believe, much fairer handled, on both sides of the issue.
Mm-hmm. I think there was a statement there that should be addressed about wells going dry. There's absolutely no evidence that wells are going dry because of marijuana production in Deschutes County. The fact is, the regulations we have in place that require growing to happen indoors means that growers have to use drip irrigation, and their system is actually much more efficient than if it was a crop being grown outside or if it was hay being grown outside. Wells are going dry for a number of factors. We're in drought. The wells we're talking about are shallow water. They're not the deep aquifer, which is at about 600 feet. We're talking about 100, 200, or 300 feet. We're in a drought. We've changed farming methods. Back in the 70s, when the first wells that I've heard of were reported going dry, that was the time that we switched from flood irrigation to sprinklers. So that was less water recharging. We're now piping canals. That's less water recharging that shallow groundwater. So there are a number of factors that are contributing to wells going dry. And that's a very serious issue, and we should take it seriously. But we shouldn't try to use that as an excuse to do something else. We should deal with the science of it, rather than someone's opinion that there's a marijuana grow a block, half mile away and my well went dry. I blame them. It could be the green lawns we have in some areas, the development that we're getting in the rural areas. Those people all use water water as well. So it is water usage is a very serious issue. Let's not minimize that issue by trying to drag it into the marijuana discussion.
Chris, did you have another follow-up on this one? I think you did.
Yeah, so Patty, you said at the last debate, I believe, in Deschutes County, some residents, have been surrounded by marijuana grows on all three sides. That means the property no longer has value. So I called the tax assessor, and he said to me that there's no evidence at this point that is the case. And then he in fact likened marijuana farming to hog farming. So my question is for both of you, do you guys have any examples of people's property actually having no value?
I do have some realtors that have told me they've had some properties, people have wanted to buy, like, you know, a couple $1 million ranch somewhere, but there was a marijuana grow next door, and the people actually walked away from the deal because they didn't want to buy and live next to it. Now, there was a nurse that was originally part of the Tumalo group. She had 5 acres of her inheritance for her grandchildren, and she was surrounded by marijuana grows, and she said, well, my property is no longer worth what I thought I had as my inheritance for my grandchildren. So it's specific people, people down Tumalo Road, they're in that area, they're in bad health, they're in their 70s, they've owned this land, this ranch forever, and now they've got marijuana on a couple sides, and they feel like their asset, which they thought was worth X, is now going to be worth Y. So, you know, these are statements that people have told me.
Okay, so I think the sticking point there was no value, the use of the word no value.
Well,
land
it definitely is going to, it goes down. It's impacted negatively. If you're the person next door, it has been impacted negatively.
And would you have the same conversation if there was indeed a hog farm next to the property? I mean, would we be having this, extensive discussion about hog farming? I mean, that is, has odor and has, a number of other concerns for people.
Or the point, hemp, which is basically the same plant, has the same smell.
Not all of it smells though. According to Matt Cyrus, his hemp doesn't smell.
Well, not all. There are different strains of hemp and different strains of cannabis, I understand, so not all of it smells the same. But you can grow as stinky of hemp as you want to grow because it's considered a farm crop, and you can plant it wall to wall in your fields, or fence to fence, I guess. And it has all the same issues. As you go around the county, you can see a number of hemp grows. It's a plant that seems to work well here. Real potential for some of our farmers.
Bringing in new income to the
to the
economy. So
it does, in spite of the fact that people are still trying to find a way to prevent it. But that hemp has the same effects next door to you as marijuana. And I'm not minimizing that this is a very serious.
It can be grown.
Please
let
me finish. Thank you.
Sorry.
I don't want to minimize the importance of the issue of marijuana to the people who are neighbors and feel they're affected. I had a very difficult discussion with some people from Alfalfa, a group of about 6 people. I didn't change one of their minds, but they were happy to hear my reasoning, and I thought they did not change my opinion that actually it will offer them more protection to actually take a safer route than to try to force this out of the area through zoning regulation.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a response? I do have a follow-up.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say about hemp is because it is an outdoor plant, it actually will have a growing season. It will be only so long during the year. It's not going to be in a greenhouse. You can actually have, I believe, like up to 4 crops a year because you've got your regulated, you've got it heated, you have air conditioned, whatever. Hemp is really, it's like a summer crop. Mm-hmm. It'll be like a hayfield. But when we have snow on the ground, it won't be growing.
Yeah. But the reason cannabis is grown indoors in Deschutes County is to appease the other people. Regulation requires it to be grown indoors. we've actually, part of our regulation has actually basically exacerbated some of the issues people have with cannabis. We forced it to grow indoors, which is actually, my understanding, a better product for the market. But yeah, but once you grow indoors, you have the opportunity to grow year-round. You concentrate the smell, you have to have fans. So, you know, the issues that we're dealing with are issues that are part of what was supposed to be the solution in the first place.
We are getting very close to the end of our hour. I want to just follow up really quickly though. James, you brought up the point of fighting, you know, to keep our regulations in place with the Land Use Board of Appeals. Certainly that's going to come with some costs. So I'm just curious about, again, tying this back to the county budget and where we spend our money. Would you be comfortable with defending our current regulations, let alone stricter regulations with the Land Use Board, if that comes with an additional budget requirement?
Well, we're waiting to see what the vote is, so that's what you're referring to. It will be interesting to see what they do decide. You know I've heard Tony, what he said. Would I be willing to support that? You know, we'll have to see if they do actually change anything. Honestly, at this point today, I don't know if they're going to change anything or not. And if they did, and it was consensus, then I would be willing to spend money to defend it. Okay. I just think, I think we have to see what their decision is.
Okay. Anything else that we didn't touch on that either one of you feels is important to do before we go? Okay, so
we could go on for a long time.
I goes quickly.
I was going to say, no, that's a loaded question, lady. But
well, we let Patty go first on the intro. So James, why don't you have the first word here for the closing remarks?
Well, I appreciate you having us in. I appreciate the chance that you create by having both candidates at the same time and making that video available. Again, I'm doing this because, like as Patty does, I love Deschutes County. I want to see a good future for it. I think my experience and my background with the city of Redmond, with zoning, with approving land use decisions, with approving and rewriting code for housing, will allow me to start out being a valuable member of the planning commission team. I look forward to dealing especially with the issue of growth. It's a very difficult and complex problem. I'm not going to solve that in 4 years. I'm not going to solve it by myself, but I think working with COIC's Housing for Everyone group to come up with solutions and actually identify those problems is going to put us on the path to do that. We've got difficult decisions to make. I don't believe that the trade-off between livability and affordability is an either or. I think we can do both, but we're going to need to concentrate on how we can keep that next generation, how my grandchildren can afford to live and stay in Deschutes County. And I have, if you visit my website and click the housing button, a number of possibilities that how we can begin to address affordable housing. But we also need affordable housing, all levels of housing, and well-designed housing, so we're not putting people out in the country where they have to hop in a car for services. We need neighborhoods that are organic enough that you can get most of your daily requirements within walking distance or biking distance, and then you get in your car maybe once a week to go to the store or to get to your work. But we need to really plan for the growth, and our growth the next 20 years is going to be more than it's been the last 20 years. It's like compound interest, and we need to be dealing with that issue now. We need to plan for the future now.
Yeah, I wish we would have had time to cover this because
Yeah.
there's a lot of things,
Yeah.
we talked, and I did hear what you both had to say about this at the debate,
Yeah.
so readers can check that
They
out
can
as
check
well
out-
if they
check
want
out
to do
the
that,
website,
because this
right.
just goes so
Growth is
fast.
a
Like,
big issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
thank you, and Patty.
Well, one thing we didn't discuss today that I do think is important, I spent Wednesday at the Veterans Exposition, and we're losing a veteran, I think in Oregon, one every 3 days. One in the country, 22 a day. So I do believe that we have a mental health crisis, and Deschutes County has come up with something that's been in the works called the Sobering and Stabilization Unit. One thing that I think would be important that we could do to make that more effective for Deschutes County is to change the hours and make it from 10 at night to 7 in the morning. If we're going to really help people, normally everyone that I've been talking to lately said that's normally when people need the help. The stabilization center right now, they're planning on having it open from the morning to 7 at night. And I'm thinking like, no, we need to flip it, and we really need to make it as effective as we can. If we're going to work with the sheriff's department, I just feel like, what is it we can do here to make it safer, help people, and try and really seriously bring down those numbers, because it's unfortunate. I really feel that running for county commissioner, I want to really help the working family and the retired people that live in Deschutes County. We have some serious issues, and as I told someone, they were saying, is it possible for like a seniors in Oregon to sign a petition so that their property tax doesn't continue that climb every year? And I said, well, get a petition in, take it upon yourself to take personal responsibility. But we need to really watch out for the people that live here, that grew up here, live here, and they want to move back here. We need those people back here. We need to service the families of Deschutes County on a larger scale. So I'm hoping that I am successful in becoming your next county commissioner.
Thank you.
Yeah. And on the Crisis Stabilization Center, what we really need is to staff it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because your crisis, whether it happens during the day or in the evening, is just as critical, and you need those services. And that also actually allows a police officer to drop someone off and leave, because that's a secure facility. Right now, they have to stay at the emergency room for however long that person is there. So we need that staff 24/7. Not doing it is really false economy, and it's important just to our police officers, but also to our mental health system. If you have a crisis during the day or the evening and that's not open and you end up at the jail, there's a good chance your path through life has just been diverted the wrong direction. If we can make sure we catch those people early, then we have a chance to get them back into being productive citizens. So we need to staff that 24/7.
Thank you.
The really actually wonderful thing is that the federal government just gave Deschutes County a grant for the next 5 years for over $300,000 to help with like some of the health issues that we're dealing with. So that was really a very positive thing. We do, we've got the state funding coming in, we've got the federal funding coming in, and someone did an excellent job of writing that grant.
So would you support a 24-hour?
You know what, I think we need to look at the cost, and I think if we start out, first we have to find the building. I think if we start out and we find that there's a tremendous need, then, we have to look, it's always a good idea to start, kind of get it going, see if the need, what is the need, in a real world, and then make a decision there.
But you just pointed out the need.
All right, folks, we got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I know we could keep going, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm going to shut this off now.
Thank you,
So
Chris.
don't look to me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Yeah.